يشبه الله البشر كلا وليس له صور لا يشبه الله البشر كلا وليس له صور وليس جسما فالحذر سبحانه رب عظيم وليس جسما فالحذر سبحانه رب عظيم سبحانه رب عظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص في القول والعمل والنية. اللهم علمنا علما نافعا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. نوينا لله تبارك وتعالى. May Allah give us the sincere intentions and the good ending. Ameen. طيب, inshallah, we're going to continue from where we left off last week. So last week we started talking about the sons of Malikshah, Sultan Malikshah. And we spoke about the first two, which is Mahmud, and before him Barkiyaruq. Now, inshallah, we'll speak about Muhammad ibn Malikshah and then Sanjar. So Muhammad ibn Malikshah ibn Alp Arslan, his title was Ghiyathuddin, and his kunya was Abu Shuja'. Muhammad and Sanjar, they were brothers from the same mother. And they did not have the same standing as Barkiyaruq, because not only was he the Sultan before them, but this is how he was perceived. While Muhammad and Sanjar, they were perceived as followers of their older brother, Barkiyaruq. When Muhammad and Barkiyaruq disagreed, Muhammad and his brother Sanjar, they went to Baghdad. And the Caliph, al-Mustadhhir, Billah, bestowed the robes of honor upon them. Now, Muhammad had requested a formal audience with the Caliph for himself and his brother Sanjar, and the Caliph granted it to them. And the audience was held for them in Qubbatut Taj, the dome of the crown. And it was attended by officials and their followers. The Caliph, he sat on his throne, and Sayf al-Dawla, Sadaqa ibn Mazid, stood to the right of the throne with the Prophet's cloak, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon his shoulder, the turban upon his head, and the staff before him. Several robes of honor were bestowed upon Muhammad according to the custom established for sultans. And he was given the collar, crown, and bracelets. And the Khalifa, the Caliph, al-Mustadhhir, he tied the banner with his own hand and girded him with two swords, giving him 5 horses with their equipment. Yani lavish horses. His brother Sanjar was given robes of honor befitting his rank. And Muhammad ibn Malikshah was proclaimed as Sultan in the Friday ceremony at Baghdad's Jami' uh, congregational masjid, as was their custom at that time. And they suspended the proclamation of Barkiyaruq for reasons that necessitated it. Now, Muhammad ibn Abdul Malik al-Hamadani, he said in his history, his book on history, uh, that it was a remarkable coincidence that when the preacher of the palace masjid in Baghdad reached the prayer for Sultan Barkiyaruq and intended to mention him, his tongue slipped, and instead he mentioned Sultan Muhammad, and he prayed for him instead. And you know that in the past, the palace of the Khalifa was not merely one building, but a compound. And there was a masjid in the compound, the palace compound itself, in which the Sultan or the Khalifa would pray there, as well as the soldiers and guards and others who were within the palace. And they would not, in many eras, go out to the public masjid for security reasons and other things. Keep in mind, this is the era in which the Ismailiyah assassins were active. As we said previously, they are the ones who assassinated as their first victim نظام الملك رضي الله عنه. So for various reasons, they would not, in many cases, pray other than in the masjid of the royal palace, if you want. So when the Khatib, when his tongue slipped, instead of mentioning Sultan Barkiyaruq, he mentioned Sultan Muhammad, his younger brother, who was not declared as the Sultan yet. So Barkiyaruq's supporters came and they made a great scandal about what had occurred in the noble court. So the khatib, the preacher, was fired. He was dismissed for this reason, and they appointed his son in his place. And the proclamation of Sultan Muhammad did not lag behind this incident except for a few days. And a few days later, Sultan Muhammad ibn Malikshah arrived with his brother Sultan Sanjar. May Allah have mercy upon them. And the Khalifa al-Mustadhhir declared Sultan Muhammad or declared Muhammad to be the Sultan. So this was, as some might say, an omen for Sultan Muhammad. As for Barkiyaruq, he was ill and went to Wasil, which is in the south of Iraq. Then his power grew strong and he prevailed. Barkiyaruq, he prevailed over his brother Sultan Muhammad, and a battle occurred between him and his brother at Rai, which we spoke about the details of these things previously, and Muhammad was defeated. And there is a lengthy explanation behind all of that, which some details we already gave, but we won't go further into it. Now, Sultan Muhammad, may Allah have mercy upon him, was the paramount man among the Seljuk kings, and he was their champion. He left beautiful monuments and had excellent conduct, comprehensive justice, charity toward the poor and orphans, war against the heretical sect, and attention to the affairs of his subjects. And the war specifically, so the war against a people of misguidance. Here specifically, those who are meant are the Ismailiyah Shia. The Ismailiyah Shia. Abu al-Barakat ibn al-Mustawfi, he mentioned him in the history of Irbil. Irbil is a city in Kurdistan in northern Iraq. So he said, Ibn al-Mustawfi, he said, I found in a book mentioned by Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali in his address to Sultan Muhammad ibn Malikshah. So this is to further clarify the historical framing. These events that we are speaking about now took place during the lifetime of Imam al-Ghazali. And all that we are speaking about now is what is occurring in the Islamic East. Once we make a shift to the West, then you will see what was occurring parallel to these events in the Islamic West and how there was overlap between these events. So, among the words of Imam al-Ghazali when he addressed Sultan Muhammad, he said, "No, O Sultan of the world, that the children of Adam are two groups. A group of heedless, ghafilun, who looked at the scenes of the worldly life and clung to the hopes of long life. So Imam al-Ghazali, he said, "Know, O Sultan of the world, Sultan al-Alam, or Sultan al-Dunya, that the children of Adam are two groups. A group of ghafilun, of the heedless, who look at the scenes of worldly life and clung to hopes of long life without reflecting upon the final breath." Does that sound familiar to anyone? And they picture someone who's looking at the scenes of worldly life. The one who spends their time on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Isn't that what they do? They look at the scenes still and in motion of the dunya of others. And they cling to these hopes that one day this will be them, or they will have what they are looking at. So those who are absent-minded are not much different in the past 1,000 years. Not much has changed for them. They value and they cling to the same things. So this is one group of people. Then he said, and a group of the intelligent who placed the final breath before their eyes. The very last breath of the person. Their own breath, your breath. Place it in front of your eyes. And don't look away. So that group of people, they do that to see what their destiny would be. And how they would depart from this world and leave it with their faith intact, and what they would take from this world into their graves, and what they would leave for their enemies after them, that would remain as burden and punishment upon them. And their legacy. What is the legacy of Imam Abu Hanifa radiyallahu anhu? When he is mentioned, who does not make dua for him when he is mentioned? Is there someone who mentions Abu Hanifa and does not say radiyallahu anhu wa rahmatullahi alayhi? So the enemy of Abu Hanifa, when he hears this, when he sees this, It burns. He's tormented by the dua in favor of his enemy. While he's left with what? His enmity toward a wali of Allah. And as you know, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said in the hadith, من عاد أولياء الله فقد بارز الله بالمحاربة. That the one who takes a wali of Allah as an enemy, then and he is waging war, yani war has been declared upon him by Allah. His war is against the one who created him. And for sure, it is a war that he will lose. So this is among what Imam al-Ghazali mentioned to Malikshah, or to Muhammad ibn Malikshah. Then Sultan Muhammad became independent with the kingdoms after the death of his brother Barkiyaruq, and no rival remained for him, and the world became clear to him. And he remained in this state for some time, then became ill for a long time, and died on Thursday, the 24th of Dhul Hijjah, in the year 511 after Al-Hijrah, in the city of Isfahan. And he is buried in Isfahan in a great madrasa, which was and is endowed, so it is a waqf for the Hanafiyyah. And there's no madrasa like it in Isfahan. What is the state of his maqam and that madrasa nowadays? I don't know. For now, Isfahan is dominated by Shia. As for his brother, Sultan Mu'izzuddin Sanjar ibn Sultan Malikshah al-Ghazi, who was the king of Khurasan and Ghazna and parts of Transoxiana. He was born in 477 after Al-Hijrah on the 25th of Rajab in the city of Sanjar, which is in Al-Jazeera, near Mosul, which is northern Iraq. And he was born during the Sultan's encampment there, when Sultan Malikshah was encamped there. His birth name is Ahmed, but he was called Sanjar after the name of the city in which he was born. And his mother was a slave. The Friday sermon was delivered in his name in Iraq, Azerbaijan, Asham, the Levant, Al Jazeera, Diyar Bakr, Iran, and Mecca and Medina, in the Hijaz. In the Hijaz. He grew up in the lands of Ghuzz Khuzestan. Then settled, Khuzestan is south of Khurasan. Then settled in Khurasan and took charge of Marw. And he assumed the vice royalty on behalf of his brother, Sultan Barkiyaruq, in the year 490 after Al-Hijrah, then became independent in his rule in the year 512 after Al-Hijrah. During his brother's time, he was titled Al-Malik al-Muzaffar, the victorious king, until his brother Muhammad died in Iraq. So Sultan Sanjar, he was given the title Al-Malik al-Muzaffar, the victorious king, until his brother died. Then he became Sultan, inherited the kingdom from his forefathers, and added upon what they had. He ruled the lands, conquered the people, and the Friday sermon was delivered in his name on most of the pulpits of Islam. And as it is clear, and we have stated previously, the religiously the authority belongs to the Caliph, and the Caliph has the right to delegate. And the Caliph, if he does delegate authority, he has the right to revoke that authority. That is how it is originally, according to the rules of the religion. However, for a long period of time, since the Turkish slave soldiers that started with al-Mu'tasim, once they gained control, practically speaking, over the Caliph, over the Abbasid Caliph, the Abbasid Caliph was mostly a figurehead, and the Sultan was the one with the practical power. And as we discussed at length, even during the time of Banu Buwayh, the practical power was not in the hands of the Sultan or the not in the hands of the Caliph. So Sultan Sanjar was dignified, modest, generous, magnanimous, compassionate, and a sincere advisor to his subjects, often showing great forgiveness. He sat upon the throne of kingship for nearly 60 years. And it is narrated that when he entered Baghdad to meet with al-Mustadhhir Billah uh, and his brother, Sultan Muhammad, he said, when we stood, the Sultan, yani the Caliph, thought that I was the Sultan. So he began his speech with me. So Sultan Sanjar had the awe and the disposition that made it appear that he was the leader of the two between him and his brother Muhammad. So al-Mustadhhir, he started speaking with Sanjar. So Sanjar, he said, I showed respect and I said, "O my master, he is the Sultan." And I pointed to my brother, meaning Muhammad. So he, the Caliph, delegated the Sultanate, the Sultan, to him and made me his heir apparent. Sultan Sanjar was among the greatest kings in ambition and the most generous in giving. It is mentioned that he celebrated for 5 consecutive days, spending extravagantly in generosity in every way, so that what he gave away in gold reached 700,000 dinars, aside from robes of honor and horses. And as you know, um, horses are valued and honored animals. And to the extent that some scholars they said it is not permissible to eat horse. It's not permissible to eat horse due to their honor. This is what some said. So the status of Sultan Sanjar continued to increase until the Ghuzz Turks prevailed over him in the year 580, the year 548 after Al-Hijrah, which was a famous battle in which the jurist Muhammad ibn Yahya was martyred. They defeated him, and the order of his kingdom collapsed. They conquered Naysabur, killed many people, and captured the Sultan. They struck off the heads of several of his commanders. Then they kissed the ground and said, "You are our Sultan." But they took him as hostage, essentially. He was their prisoner. And he remained with them like a common soldier, riding a pack horse, sometimes going hungry. They brought him and entered Maru with him. Their commander, Bakhtiyar, requested it from him as a fief. So he said, "How can this be? This is the seat of kingship." He said, "How can this be? This is the seat of kingship." They mocked him and laughed. So he stepped down from kingship and entered the Khanqa, the Sufi lodge of Maru. If you want to have an idea as to what one of those Sufi lodges, yani Zawiya, essentially looked like at that time, there is a Turkish show about Yunus Emiri, radiyallahu anhu, who was a famous wali among the awliya from Turkey, who had many karamat. Um, and his story was amazing. That Turkish show, yani, they embellish and they add things and they imagine things and fill in gaps. Um, but just to give you an idea, what is the Sufi lodge? Um, they depicted such a place. So it will at least give you an idea. So Sultan Sanjar, he entered the Khanqa. The Ghuzz Turks committed acts that even blasphemers would not commit in their atrocities or in their enormities. The armies gathered, so they made Sanjar's Mamluk Aybak the ruler, yani the commander of his Mamluk, and his slave soldiers. And disasters befell Khurasan. He remained in their captivity for 3 years and 4 months, then escaped from them and returned to Khurasan. With his death, the rule of the Seljuks came to an end in Khurasan, and Khwarazm Shah Abbasid ibn Muhammad ibn Anu Shitakin took control of most of his kingdom. And we spoke about him, Khwarazm Shah, when we spoke about um, the Khaniyun. Sultan Sanjar, he died on the 24th of Rabi' al-Awwal in the year 552 after Al-Hijrah, and was buried in a dome that he built, that he had built and named Darul Akhirah. So this was the reality of the fourth generation of Seljuk rulers. The first was Tughril Bek. Then came his nephew Alp Arslan, then Malikshah, then his children, who they fought amongst themselves. So things continued like that until the time came in which the Seljuk Sultan Mas'ud ibn Muhammad and the Abbasid Caliph al-Mustarshid, who was captured and imprisoned in Isfahan, until the two sides fought. And al-Mustarshid, he was assassinated by some Batiniyyah assassins in the year 529 after Al-Hijrah. Now, Sultan Mas'ud ibn Muhammad ibn Malikshah, he died in the year 547 after Al-Hijrah in Hamadan. He had an acute fever that lasted for a week. When he died, the good fortune of the Seljuk house died with him. So no banner was raised after him that could be reckoned with or given attention. Sultan Mas'ud, may Allah have mercy on him, he was of good character, um, and he was very sociable. And he liked to be lighthearted and jest, joke around with people. For example, an example of this is that Atabeg or Atabek Zenki, who was the ruler of Mosul. Does anyone know who that is? Again, sometimes I'm not sure if people are listening or not, so I'll throw a question every now and then. Who's Arabak Zenki from Mosul? Does the name sound familiar at all?
It sounds familiar.
Yani Zenki. And lo and behold, mashallah, our brother Imad, he said yes. For in fact, Arabak Zenki is Imaduddin Zenki. Imaduddin Zenki is the father of who? He is the father of who? Who's his son? Nuruddin. Nuruddin Zenki. And after Nuruddin Zenki comes who? Salahuddin. And we'll we'll take a closer look at this later. But as I mentioned before, there is a direct link between the Seljuks and uh, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. And that link is right here. Imaduddin Zanki. A direct link, not indirect. But we'll mention in detail later. So, an example of this, the character and the sociability of Sultan Mas'ud ibn Muhammad ibn Malikshah is that Arabak Zenki, he sent to him Qadi Kamaluddin Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn al-Qasim al-Shahrazuri. He sent him on a mission. When he arrived and stayed with him in the army camp, he stood one day at the wazir's tent until the call to the Maghrib prayer was near. He then returned to his own camp, and the Maghrib adhan was made while he was on the road. So he saw a learned man in a tent. Sometimes they are referred to as turban wearers. So, at that time, the turban wearer was either a scholar or, if you want, an official of the diwan, of the government ministry that managed affairs of people. In order to do that, you need to have religious knowledge, which was generally a requirement for people, unless corruption took hold. So then, Qadi Kamaluddin, he asked this man where he was from, and he said, "I am the judge of such and such city." Kamaluddin, he said to him, "Judges are three." And this is from the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Two judges are in the fire. And he said, that is you and me. And one judge in paradise. And he is the one who does not know the doors of these oppressors and does not see them. Meaning he stays away from the rulers who commit injustice. For the rulers will seek religious legitimacy and or cover for any oppression that they commit. So they need someone with religious authority to run cover for them, to control and influence. And this is why he said, since they are at the door of the Sultan, that they are closer to be among those who will be in the fire. So the next day, the Sultan summoned Kamaluddin and had him brought before him. When he approached him and saw him, he laughed and said, "Judges are three." Kamaluddin said, "Yes, my master." And he's agreeing with him. He said, "By Allah, you spoke the truth. How happy is he who does not see us and whom we do not see." Then he ordered that his need be fulfilled and sent him back that same day. And so what is implied here is that the the Qadi that he prayed with told Sultan Mas'ud what he said. And Sultan Mas'ud, may Allah have mercy upon him, he agreed that this is in fact the case. This is in fact the case. Sultan Mas'ud was generous and abstinent from the wealth belonging to his subjects, of good contact, so he was not a usurper, and nor was he an oppressor, someone who confiscates the wealth and property of others. He was of good conduct toward them, among the most righteous of sultans in conduct, and gentlest of them in nature, easy of character, and gracious. As for al-Mustarshid Billah, since we mentioned him, his kunya was Abu Mansur. He was the son of al-Fadl ibn al-Mustadhhir Billah. When there was fighting between him and Sultan Mas'ud, he was captured, and Sultan Mas'ud lodged him in a tent and assigned some to guard him, providing what was required in terms of service. And messengers went back and forth between the two regarding peace and and establishing terms based on the money that the Caliph would pay, that he would not gather armies, and that he would not leave his house. The Sultan agreed to this, mounted the Caliph, and after agreeing to these terms, the Sultan Mas'ud, he mounted the Caliph on horseback and carried the ceremonial covering before him, and nothing remained but for him to return to Baghdad. Then news arrived that the Amir, the prince, Khurasan Khan, had sent a messenger from Sultan Sanjar. So al-Mustarshid's departure was delayed as a result. The people and Sultan Mas'ud went out to meet him, and the Caliph was separated from them or from some of those who had been assigned to guard him. And his tent was isolated from the army camp. So 24 men from the Batiniyyah, Ismailiyah assassins came to him, entered upon him, and killed him. They wounded him with more than 20 wounds, strikes, blows, and they mutilated him, cutting off his nose and ears, and they left him naked. As for the Batiniyyah assassins, 10 of them were killed. And according to some historic reports, all of them were killed. But Allah knows best. Al-Mustarshid, when he was killed, he was 43 years old in 3 months. And he himself was described as being noble and brave, of great boldness and lofty ambition. And his aforementioned deeds demonstrated what we have mentioned. That is what Ibn al-Athir said. So there is much more about al-Mustarshid prior to what we are quoting from Ibn al-Athir. And he was said to be eloquent and well-spoken with beautiful handwriting. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam wa ahkam, and Allah knows best. We will stop here for tonight. What comes after this point is to speak about the Zankiyun. So the rulership of the Turkish Mamluks and Kurds in northern Iraq and eastern Syria, as well as eastern Turkey. After we speak about them, then we'll speak about Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, radiyallahu anhu, which will lead us to speaking about the end of the rule of the Ubaydiyah, which in Egypt, which was still going on during all of this, all of these political events and movements in the East. And their rule, the Ubaydiyun, was brought to an end by Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. And then we'll speak about what occurred after that, which was the liberation of Jerusalem. Ameen wa fikum. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. So we still have 360 pages to go in volume 1, and then about another 500 pages in volume 2. So inshallah, if we live long enough, maybe someone asked who stepped forward when a caliph was killed. Or you're asking about that specific caliph? Or just in general? After al-Mustarshid was killed, al-Rashid Billah became the caliph, which was his son. Al-Rashid Billah, his name was Abu Ja'far Mansur. Any other questions? And one thing, we didn't talk about it, but one thing which was implied, the fact that there was a fight between Sultan Mas'ud and the Khalifa al-Mustarshid, that means he was reviving the duties, and this is how he was described. Sheikh Abdul Basit al-Fakhuri, he described al-Mustarshid Billah as the reviver of the duties of the Khilafah. So if he was just a puppet or figurehead, then there would not have been any fight between him and Sultan Mas'ud. طيب فسبحان الله وبحمده وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأستغفر الله وأتوب إليه. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. بارك الله فيكم وأحسن الله إليكم. وجزاكم الله ألف خير. Inshallah, we'll continue this lesson next week.
لا يشبه الله البشر كلا وليس له صور لا يشبه الله البشر كلا وليس له صور وليس جسما فالحذر سبحانه رب عظيم وليس جسما فالحذر سبحانه رب عظيم